The European Union is proud that it is giving enough money to the Ukrainians to keep fighting for at least 2 more years, financing 800,000 more dead and war-disabled. So the war happening, fortunately, is still far enough from us, and it is brutal. It is no coincidence that even the United States thought that, although this front line is really far away, it is still in its interest for peace to be achieved as soon as possible. But it is not. Why is there no peace? The European Union is proud that it is giving enough money to the Ukrainians to keep fighting for at least 2 more years, financing 800,000 more dead and war-disabled. So the war happening, fortunately, is still far enough from us, and it is brutal. It is no coincidence that even the United States thought that, although this front line is really far away, it is still in its interest for peace to be achieved as soon as possible. But it is not. Why is there no peace? The Americans want to make peace. If the Western Europeans supported the American peace efforts and only said that they would behave exactly like the Americans, this war would already be over. Peace negotiations would have started long ago and would be underway. But the Europeans decided differently. They say that the Americans misunderstand the situation and that this war must continue. The reason there is still a war today is that the European leaders want it that way. They want the war to continue. The question is, why do they want this? It is hard to understand. What I see is the following. First of all, they involved themselves in the war. It is difficult for someone to get out of a war that they stepped into themselves. The Americans are in an easy position. The previous president led them into the war, whereas the new peace party took them out. But what does the French or German leader say, who at the beginning decided that, as they said, this is our war? They provide money, weapons, and encouragement to Ukraine. They should go home and say we were wrong. But it is apparent that they cannot do this. They cannot. Their governments would be shaken. This is the right of politics. There is also an economic right. This is where the Ukrainians come in, about whom I would not say a single critical word. There is no need. We all think the same, do we not? Well, around here, if we need to ask, we do not do it as the Ukrainians do. The Ukrainians think that it is a matter of life and death for them that the war continues. The Ukrainians think that continuing the war is not just about winning the war, it is a matter of life and death, but also because of their economy. Because if there is no war, who will give them money? Ukraine will receive money as long as there is war. Look at the example of the Americans. After a while, even they stopped giving, but for a time they did. So the Ukrainians think that with the war, they must achieve goals that go beyond the aims of the war and concern Ukraine's future. For example, they want to extract as much money as possible from the Europeans. Well, now it is possible, so let us request this 90 billion, then ask for the next 800 and 700. But Viktor, stop. The Ukrainian idea, except for Hungary, the Czech Republic and Slovakia, does not enjoy support within the Union. We 3 are the ones who do not support it. The Ukrainians are using every means to ensure that Hungary has a government that guarantees 3 things. It accepts Ukraine into the European Union. It provides weapons, and if necessary, even people. It gives a significant part of its money. These 3 things they want. Today, Hungary is an obstacle to this. Moreover, Hungary is a dangerous example, because Hungary's example shows that it is possible not to give. But the situation is not the same with oil. The oil still comes through Ukraine. It has been coming so far, and now the Ukrainians have closed this off. This is what we are discussing. This is causing an energy crisis that they want to create in Hungary. We will soon talk about what their goal is with this, but let us look at the situation first. This is serious. The Ukrainians do not have the right to do this, because there is an association agreement between the European Union and Ukraine, which states that Ukraine cannot make a decision that would endanger the energy supply of any member state. This was the prerequisite for them to have an associated rather than a full member relationship with the European Union. They are not complying with this. We have certain knowledge that the pipeline is capable of transporting fuel and oil. What can be done? And now I have indeed arrived at your question. So, if a country is attacked in this way, 2 things need to be done. The first thing is to fend off the attack. So the country must be defended. And Hungary has skillfully, in a structured way, and also legally, I think brilliantly, a self-defense system that makes oil reserves available to us so that we are capable of supplying Hungary for months. So we can fend off the attack. The thing is that we contributed to a unanimous decision 2 months ago in Brussels, which is about the Union taking out a loan and giving it to the Ukrainians. This is the specific 90 billion you are asking about. And the Hungarians, the Slovaks, and the Czechs finally put our heads together and concluded that it is fine. If we stay out of this, you go ahead and do it, but we will not be responsible for it, and this loan will not financially burden us. So we stayed out of it. But a unanimous decision is needed, so without our contribution, this would not work. Fortunately, Brussels works slowly, as this paper should now be moved to the final signing, and we said hold on, so this will not be good. The European Union is not helping us. Brussels is not forcing the Ukrainians to adhere to the agreement, but rather trying to persuade us. But we made it clear that until a new one comes back, until oil comes from Ukraine, Ukraine will never receive this 90 billion forints. That is the situation. I could also say that you get what you give. And then there is one more thing here, which for now I will cautiously observe carefully, because a considerable portion of the electricity supply, a significant part of it, goes from Hungary towards Ukraine. This is rough. So if we stop that, then rough things can happen. In any case, the Slovaks put this into perspective yesterday. We are negotiating with the Slovaks, and if necessary, we will make this third intervention as well. Their only hope is, and they say this too, to defeat Russia on Ukrainian territory, and they will demand reparations from Russia to get their money back. I have no comment on this, I would just say that both Napoleon and Hitler tried this, and it didn't work out for them. Now it looks like Kaja Kallas will try. So what I'm trying to say is that this is a misguided endeavor with terrible human sacrifices. A misguided political strategy. The German Chancellor said 3 or 4 days ago that the war must be continued because, although Russia has not yet collapsed, it is already close to facing internal economic difficulties, because of which the war should be abandoned. We are closer to Russia than Berlin is. Maybe that's why we see reality more clearly. Doesn't it usually happen the other way around? And in the end, isn't it Berlin's towers where the victory flags usually fly? I remember this. Who will be exhausted sooner here? So I think that the whole European idea is a flawed concept. They are chasing after their money, they are chasing after their authority, they want to prove that their previous bad decision is still a good decision, and they hope that the Russians will not be able to sustain it economically, will appear at the negotiating table, and accept the Western conditions. I think it's a complete misunderstanding. If someone thinks this is a good strategy, then they should join. I think this is a misguided thing, and everyone who joins this European thought and plans will eventually lead their own country into trouble. They will ruin their own country. It won't be Russia that economically collapses here, but Europe,